All right, good morning. We'll call our meeting to order, please. This is the February 16th meeting of the Mississippi Department of Education Board, and we appreciate your being here with us today. We would ask that you make sure your cell phones are on silent. We have people joining us via the live stream. We have 3 members who are actually 4 members. Dr. Ronnie McGehee is out of state at a conference. Dr. Wendy Barrett is at her school. We have Micah Hill, one of our student representatives, who is in Laurel, had a conflict, and then Miss Mary Werner, who is in Saltillo, is joining us by Zoom. So those of you that are sitting around the table, you're going to have to be active today so we can do the business. We have kind of already had a busy morning with subcommittee meetings and a lot of other things. So we ask that in order to start our meeting, that we call the roll, and we'd ask that you state your location. Obviously, we have Mr. Miller is with us. Mr. East is with us. Mr. Jacobs is here in the boardroom. Our student representative, Charlie Fruget, is here. Dr. McGehee, would you state your location, please?
San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. Dr. Barrett? Wait, you're on mute. We're not hearing you. No, we're not getting you. Micah, would you state your location, please?
Yes, ma'am. I'm in Ellisville, Mississippi.
Okay. And Ms. Werner, are you online?
I am, and I'm in Saltillo, Mississippi.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll now have our pledge and our invocation. I'm going to ask Charlie, would you do our pledge this morning?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll do the invocation.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Join me in prayer, please. Our Father, we thank you for another day. We thank you for the life that you've given us, and we thank you for the privilege that we have of serving. We ask that you go with us today as we make decisions that impact the department and the school districts around the state. And may we never take for granted the gift that we've been given to help guide the direction of the boys and girls of this state. We pray for the teachers and administrators and the students. We pray that you'll keep them safe, that you will be with those that are giving instruction, that they will give their best job. Go with us now as we go through this meeting and on into our daily life, that we will always seek your guidance and stay in the center of your will. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We are glad to have Sarah Mann with us from the Attorney General's office. Sarah is serving as our attorney today, filling in while we wait for our permanent replacement. And we're glad to have Charlie back. Charlie Fruget is our junior representative, and as those of you who attend our board meetings regularly know, Charlie has been given his reports via live stream. He has been in Washington. We can say that now, although it's pretty obvious, but they put the muzzle on us as to what he was doing. He'll tell you more about that, but we're glad to have you back with us, Charlie. Our first item for action is approval of the minutes from the January 19th, 2023 board meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes as they were presented to you?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, then Are there any items on the consent agenda that you would like pulled out for discussion? All right, well, if there are none, then we will adopt the agenda as presented. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, Mr. Jacobs, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay,
Ms. Warner may have it.
Ms. Werner, all right, all in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, all right, thank you. We don't have a recognition this month, so we will move into the report from the state superintendent. And Dr. Taylor has been busy, so we're going to let him tell you about all his activities for the month.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And today actually marks 1 month on the job. 16 January was the first day, and 16 February, it has been a whirlwind, but it has been great. I started out meeting with elected leaders and legislators. Definitely wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to talk with me. And so over the past month, I've had an opportunity to meet with Governor Tate Reeves and Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman and House Speaker Philip Gunn, as well as the Senate Education Chair Dennis DeBar and the Vice Chair David Bond. Also House Education Chair Richard Bennett and Vice Chair Ken McCarty, Representative Kevin Felcher, Representative Jansen Owen, and Senator Nicole Boyd. So I've been around the Capitol, meeting a lot of folk and basically sharing my thoughts and ideas and listening to things that they wanted to share as well. I've had an opportunity to meet other lawmakers during the MDE's fiscal year 24 budget request. We did meet with both the House and the Senate with an opportunity to talk about the appropriations and the things that we wanted to see in the budget. I was also part of a legislative reception for Dr. Joe Paul, who is the president of USM, so it was great to see him, and I'll share a bit more about a visit that I had to USM. Each welcomed me to my new role. They were very excited. They expressed their support of the state board and its initiatives and priorities. So it was a good opportunity to get out and meet legislators, and we'll continue that work. We did have a visit from the U.S. Secretary of Education yesterday. He made a visit to Casey Elementary School. That's Secretary Miguel Cardona. His visit there was really about the arts program, and he wanted to share information and see firsthand how the ARP funding was used to support after-school programs as well as arts. And he also made a visit to Jackson State where he talked about teacher recruitment and things that are needed in terms of getting more teachers. So we were glad that he came to Mississippi and had an opportunity to hear us and some of our concerns. I've also made a number of visits to low-performing districts. These were the D and F districts. When I talked with the board, one of the priorities that we had was getting out into those districts and making sure we understand what those issues are. So we visited 5 of the state's low-performing school districts to meet their leaders, listen to the strategies that they're employing, talking about student achievement and the ways that they can improve. One of the things I was particularly interested in was what could MDE do to support their efforts. I can tell you that they had a lot of great things to say about the department and people that work in the MDE. And so we continually talk about our goal is to be a service-oriented agency. We know that we do have what we call a regulatory arm. That's what we have to do, but we also want to be able to provide support. And so those districts were Yazoo City, Humphreys County, that are a part of the Achievement School District, as well as Clarksdale, Coahoma County, and West Tallahatchie School District. So in the coming weeks, I'll be visiting those other districts as well. And so I hope to have all of those completed by the end of February and the beginning of March. I've also had an opportunity to meet with a lot of stakeholders and have some speaking engagements across the state. The Mississippi Association of School Superintendents Winter Alliance meeting was held, and I had an opportunity to go to a reception that Sunday and meet a lot of the superintendents. And then that Wednesday had an opportunity to give some welcoming remarks. Coach Hall from Southern Miss was there, and he did an absolutely wonderful job talking about leadership, and I think the superintendents got a lot from that. Also had an opportunity to go to the Early Learning Collaborative Act 10-year celebration, so this was really great. The event recognized the MD's effective administration of this landmark legislation. Also, Dr. Jill Dent, the Government Relations Director, and Holly Spivey received the 2023 Mississippi Pre-K Champion Award, along with the Lieutenant Governor, the House Speaker, and other legislators. So I guess we could put that as a part of a celebration next time for our ceremony. So congratulations, Holly. We thank you for what you've done. I also had an opportunity to go to the School Safety Alliance meeting. That was a good opportunity to hear about school safety. The Safety Commissioner, Sean Tyndall, was there. We also had Dr. McGehee, who was there representing the state board, so we appreciate your leadership there as well. One of the highlights for me was visiting the University of Southern Mississippi. As you all know, that is my undergraduate university in Southern Miss to the top. They had a really great reception for me there, but not only the reception for me, but had an opportunity to meet with superintendents in the RESA, but more particularly to have a deep conversation with members of the education faculty, members of the student body that are in the education program, and then those teachers that are in our teacher academy that are going through the alternate licensure program. So that was a really good opportunity to engage and hear from that entire group about how they're doing work to increase teachers that can go into public schools, but more particularly that conversation with the Department of Education about how we need to have greater collaboration between K-12 and higher ed as it relates to teacher preparation. The next day I had an opportunity to go to William Carey University. Mr. East, he was there as well representing his district. And it was the second annual Teacher Recruitment and Retention Conference. So we had an opportunity to again engage and understand the different things that districts are doing and William Carey are doing to increase the teacher pool. In particular, and this was news to me, that William Carey puts out about, this last round, it was about 1,300 educators that came out of all the programs, and William Carey has put out 632 of those from traditional programs. So we know they're doing a lot of work. We just want to see that continue to increase. I've also had a lot of internal meetings. We had a virtual employee meeting with all staff, so that was an opportunity for me to say words to everybody in the MDE and share some thoughts about me moving forward as the new leadership, but as well give them an opportunity to share with me as well. And last but not least, I'll share what I've put out as my 5 priorities, and we'll certainly have more time to talk about this. But I know that there's so much work that we're doing as a state, but I know people are interested in what will my priorities be. And that is certainly to continue to work on literacy and mathematics. We know that we've made tremendous gains not only in the state, but we're recognized nationally for that work. And so I do want to see that continue. The work that we're going to be doing with low-performing schools, that is going to be a priority as well. We know that as a state we've made gains, but those districts still need the help in building capacity, and so that is going to be a priority for me. As well, the teacher shortage. We know that districts cannot teach children if they don't have the teaching staff, so we're going to continue that work with teacher shortage and making sure we can grow the number of teachers that are coming in. Career and technical education certifications, what I've continually heard from businesses is that we want to see kids come out with credentials where they can go directly into the workforce and support our local industry. So we want to make sure that we're in lockstep with them as we prepare students to go into industry. And last but certainly not least, the work on early childhood education. I know our accountability committee just shared some information. I know Mr. Jacobs and I had a conversation about what early childhood education should look like before we had the committee meeting, and it actually came up. And so we know that if kids are going to be successful in school, then it has everything to do with how they're prepared before they even get to us. So we've done a tremendous amount of work with early childhood education, and that will continue to be a priority for me. While these are my 5 priorities, there are a ton of other things that we know are priorities as well, and we will continue that work as well. So thank you, Madam Chair, and for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. All of this work done by a man who doesn't have an office. He's just wandering around out there because he does. I don't know if he's exactly where he likes during the day, but we're looking forward to being able to get back into the building and have more of a cohesive work environment. But we appreciate what you've done this first month, and you have certainly covered a lot of territory in the course of your month of being here. We have, during this last month, I have continued, along with staff and others, working on transition and making sure that everything is running smoothly. I too was supposed to have attended the MASC conference, Mississippi Association of School Superintendents. I was unable to attend that. However, Mr. East covered for us. He was there, and so I appreciate him doing that. We want to thank, too, today the school for the deaf and blind. They have come bringing us these big these cards that they have made, these appreciation cards, and this one has Braille on it to thank us for the work that we do and to show their appreciation. That was the photograph we were making earlier so that they can put it on their website. But we thank them for recognizing the work that the department and that the board does, and we appreciate those. Also, it's time for us to begin seeking new applicants for our student representative. These years go by so quickly. Michael will be moving off at the end of the year. She will be graduating, and she has a decision to make as to where she's going to go to college. She has options that you may hear about later on. But we have been in the recruitment process. We have 27 applications from rising juniors in 18 school districts, and they all got to MDE by the January 27th deadline. The ad hoc screening committee that Dr. McGehee chairs will meet on March the 7th to begin rating the applications to select the top 10 semifinalists. And they will then be interviewed by the School Performance and Accountability Subcommittee. That will happen in April and May. And then the student representative finalists will be interviewed by the full board at a special call meeting on June the 14th. And then from that interview, the board will appoint a student representative who will be a junior next year in the school, and an alternate. We always have an alternate student representative also. So it's quite a competitive process. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and we thank the department for the work that they do, particularly Donna Hales and Sonia Amos for the work that they do in pulling this all together and getting these students in here. It is always encouraging that we have 18 school districts that did participate. We would like to see more school districts send us students that would for consideration. But I can tell you, if you interview on these and sit in and hear these students, you just realize how many sharp young people there are in our schools. And they come from very small schools to the largest schools. And they come from schools that are not particularly high performing, and they come from the highest performing. And when you lined them up against the wall, you wouldn't know which one came from which, because they just represent themselves in their school districts so well. And we feel so fortunate that we've had such good students to apply and to be a part of it. So anyway, we look forward to that, and it's always a fun time, and we learn from them, quite frankly. So it's been a nice addition to this board to have students on the board. So with having said that, Micah, are you ready to give your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good morning. As you all know, I'm a big STEM advocate and started my own STEM organization, Adventures in 3D Printing, where I teach young girls how to code, 3D print, and dive into robotics. And I created this camp because there's a disproportionate amount of women, especially women of color, in the computer science field. And I wanted to ensure that I was doing my part in my community by giving underrepresented girls an opportunity to learn skills that will help them in their journey in STEM. And although I started my own program, there's only so much outreach I can do alone. And I know the best way to reach more students in my community with STEM would have to be through implementing courses in clubs, or implementing courses or clubs in our schools. You can move on to the next slide. I'm proud to say that we are indeed implementing more STEM opportunities in our district, from elementary all the way to high school. A couple of weeks ago, Laurel Magnet School of the Arts started a group called Tornado Techies. You can see them in the picture. My mom is the lead of the group, and I get to assist as a mentor. This group of students learn engineering through Legos, and next week we're going to learn the basics of coding and actually engineering the Legos. At the end of the curriculum, they will eventually compete to showcase everything that they've learned through the program. And I feel like this is a great opportunity for these young students, these young boys to see if this is a field that they're actually interested in. You can move on to the next slide. My high school has a STEM competition team run by our science department chair, Miss Rebecca Hooper, who is the young woman in the bright yellow hoodie. She teaches us how to create useful and relevant science experiments, how to hypothesize outcomes, and present data that helps us reach our conclusions. And we'll be competing in our first competition tomorrow, so I'm really excited about that. You can move on to the next slide. Finally, we have something new coming to my district. Laurel Middle School is implementing a STEAM, which is same as STEM, except it's adding the art component to science, technology, and engineering, and math. So they're implementing a STEAM Academy, which is coming fall 2023 school year. And students who are interested must complete an application to determine their eligibility for the program. And sometimes I wish I started learning how to code, or I learned that I had a passion for STEM in elementary school instead of high school, but I'm glad my school district is recognizing the importance of students having early exposure to STEM and problem-solving skills that will benefit them in the workforce. That's my report. Thank you.
Well, good for you. Yeah, you are developing a program that hopefully will have a long-term impact on your school district and open the doors for a lot of students. So, and Legos are always fun, whether you're
I know, they love them. They love them.
Planning to be an engineer or not, they're just fun to play with.
Right.
Terrible to step on, but fun to play with. All right, Charlie, we're glad to have you back with us today, and we're ready for your report.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, that's awesome, Micah. I'll be sure to have some questions about that later. So good morning, everyone. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to Ms. Altman and to the rest of the board. Thank you all so much for bearing with me while I was in Washington, D.C. for 6 months and allowing me to do my duties virtually. I really am so grateful to all of you, so thank you. I also want to say that I'm so glad to be back in Mississippi, really glad to be back in Oxford, and glad to be back in this boardroom with you all. I really can't wait to see what's in store for MDE this year. Before I start talking about all these really cool pictures on the board, I do want to speak briefly on 2 things that happened this past week. So last Friday, a week ago, we had 80 students gather at the Mississippi Capitol and talk education policy. This is our Student Advisory Committee. We talked about ACT prep, talked about mental health, talked about school safety, just general topics. And these students are really passionate about education. I know Mike and I are really glad to have some people who really care, and Mike and I are really glad to have someone who can give us input outside of our own districts. I also want to give a little shout out to Ms. Crissetti and to Dr. Fort. We connected at the Capitol, and they happened to be in Oxford yesterday, and they were kind enough to pull me out of class and to say hey. So I was really appreciative for that. It got me out of AP Government. All right, so now I'm going to talk about some of these pictures. So I can tell everyone what I've been doing for the last 6 months, finally. If you haven't figured it out yet, I was Senator Wicker's page in the United States Senate. And today I'd like to talk about this experience, both on a personal level and on an education policy level, because that's what I'm really into. So, what is a page? In the U.S. Senate, pages are appointed by senators, and we work in the chamber. We set up senators to speak with lecterns and water. We assist the clerks in the legislative process, and we help the cloakrooms with whatever they need on a daily basis. Over the course of 6 months, I witnessed hundreds of hours of congressional debate, and I held doors for senators for hours on end. Not so fun fact about pages is that we don't have phones or Wi-Fi while serving. I'm really glad to report that I'm back in commission. So So I can contact you in a timely manner. Feel free to email me, and I will respond this time, I promise. I also got to explore all that Washington, D.C. has to offer. On the weekends, my friends and I would go find cool restaurants and fun neighborhoods. Now, as you can imagine, it was quite the culture shock moving from Oxford, Mississippi to Washington, D.C. But I think I adjusted fairly well with the help of some really good friends and an open mind. So while paging, we attended classes early in the morning at the U.S. Senate Page School. Our classes started at 6:15, and they lasted 35 to 50 minutes, depending on the schedule of the Senate that day. I took English composition, American literature, government, and physics. My teachers were really fantastic, and they piqued my interest in a variety of areas. Now, the most common question that I've been asked after this experience is, what did you learn? And as you can imagine, the answer is a lot. But in an effort to be a little more articulate and a little more insightful, I came up with a much better answer for y'all. If we turned on major news networks right now, we would see divisive rhetoric and polarizing reports of our current events. We might even see a senator providing comment on TV. Similarly, if any of you took out your phones and went on Twitter right now, you would be sure to see a lively exchange between our elected officials, both state and federal. Now, pages have a very unique view of the Senate and of current events. We sit on the dais in the Senate and in the back lobby. And we see the senators when there are no journalists around, when there are no cameras on. Because of this, we get to listen to the senators outside of the media cycle. The most important thing I learned after 6 months in the Senate is that senators are people first and senators second. Their friendships cross party lines, and their views certainly don't define them. Following a debate, senators nearly always shake hands, they ask about each other's families, and they tell the other well done, regardless of party. Through this experience, I learned that having differing political opinions and being a good friend aren't mutually exclusive. Now, on another note, the Senate Page School was fascinating to me from a policy standpoint. The school had 26 students, 30 normally, 4 teachers, an executive assistant, and a principal. Pages wake up at 5 a.m. and are downstairs in the school in coat and tie by 5:30 eating breakfast. By 6:15, pages are in their first period class learning. Classes lasted between 35 and 50 minutes, depending on the schedule. And because of this, my teachers had to adjust their curriculums accordingly. For instance, my English class didn't read novels. We read short stories because of the crunch on time. And as the Page School is on a perpetual time crunch, teachers must assign plenty of homework to hold the pages over for the day. I typically had 2 to 4 hours of homework per day. Imagine that. And in my English class, we studied plenty of etymology and mythology. And I never knew the history of words could be so interesting. We read William Bradford, Francis Hopkinson, and Herman Melville, among many others. And I honed my abilities to analyze literature and to understand authors on a deeper level. In government, we read Madison and Hamilton's views on how the Senate interacts with the executive and the judicial branch. And then we went to work, and we watched how the Senate interacted with the executive and the judicial branch. We studied dozens of landmark Supreme Court cases, and we held Socratic-type seminars to understand the texts we read on a deeper level. Now finally, in physics, we moved through the units quickly, and we studied Newton's laws of motion. We completed lots of labs where we proved these laws, and we got a break from the somewhat monotonous bookwork. Now, the Page School is a fascinating case study in education policy. In our current climate, where researchers are cautioning boards away from early start times, away from heavy homework loads, away from rigid learning and teaching methods, the Page School effectively educates its students in a timely manner. They seem to go against the current trends in education, and they do it really well. I can confidently say that I learned more in the past 6 months than I did in my first 2 years of high school. Now, once again, thank you to Ms. Altman and to the rest of the board for allowing me to remain on the board during this time in Washington. I'm also really grateful to Senator Wicker and to his staff for this opportunity and for the kindness they showed me in the Capitol. Now, I look forward to continuing our work for the students in Mississippi. Thank you.
Great report. Well, coming home to Oxford High School was a break. Then, if you were getting up and going to class at 6 o'clock,
That's
I'd
not
hate
a
to
knock
think.
on Oxford.
Well, that that is a lifetime of learning and memories, and something you'll carry with you forever. So we're happy that you were able to have that opportunity and bring a new perspective to things. So good. We have 3 subcommittees. Let's see. The first one, the Academic Achievement Pre-K Committee, Mr. East.
That's me.
Mm-hmm.
We met yesterday afternoon. Always impressed with the work that our teams do in the State Department. I appreciate that work. I've skipped a highlight, so y'all have to punish me later if I'm not having 4. I've got 3 here that I can recall. Probably the most exciting was, and Dr. Taylor mentioned it, is the early collaborative. There are butterflies all over the state celebrating that 10 years of early learning, of the early learning collaborative. So I think that's a powerful example of work from 10 years ago that this board put together, and then the staff has been able to initiate across the state. Also, the review of our ESEA plan is coming up, and things that we're doing differently in that world. Probably more of the mundane kind of stuff. There's no butterflies there, but it's work that's really important in helping school districts to do what they want to do. And the one that I was really greatly interested in is the academy, the instructional coaching academy that we're putting together for teachers to go through, learn very good classroom leadership skills and working with other teachers, not leading to a certificate endorsement at this point, but I think in the studies we continue to do, we'll probably end up at that level eventually. So great work from that group. Matt and I both enjoy talking with them before each board meeting every month. So whatever the 4th one was, y'all just forgive me, and I'll talk about it next time, okay? Thank y'all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jacobs, Legislative Committee.
Well, this was my first meeting as chair of the committee, and it was interesting. We chatted about a number of bills before the legislature that we're working on, and we talked about Dr. Taylor's confirmation and how that's going, and it was quite good, quite interesting, and I learned a lot.
Okay, good. All right, Dr. McGehee, school performance and accountability.
Had a good meeting. Again, like Mr. East said, with early collaboratives, 35 of them, a very positive work going forward, and I applaud that effort.
Okay, thank you, sir. So as you can see, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes and things. Everybody's got a job and a challenge to be able to help move the work forward. We'll move now into the meat of our agenda. The first one is an informational item. This is to review the amendment to Mississippi's Consolidated State Plan. Ms. Clemens?
Okay. Good morning, Ms. Altman and members of the State Board. The MDE Office of Academic Education, particularly the Office of School Improvement, brings forth amendments to the state's consolidated state plan, also known as Mississippi Succeeds, as required under the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, amended as the Every Student Succeeds Act in 2015. The Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education, required all states to resume their accountability systems and identification of schools of support and improvement for the 21-22 school year, but allowed the states to request a one-year addendum plan to adjust for missing data. So the MDE has worked closely with the state's Accountability Task Force, the Technical Advisory Committee, and the Center for Assessment to review and analyze assessment data to ensure the COVID-19 addendum was technically sound and presented an accurate picture of the academic performance of Mississippi students. This work is reflected in the revisions provided to you today. Of course, our vision and mission, our vision is obviously to produce students that are prepared for college and or the workforce, both. And our mission is to create policy procedure that allows school districts to create that workforce for our state. Our 6 strategic goals, of course, you know, when we started the Mississippi Succeeds Plan, we realized that we had a strong strategic plan and that there was no reason to break that up. In fact, our plan is based on that strategic plan. It was then and it is now. So we feel very strongly that what we're presenting to you and will present to the feds supports the work that you've charged us with, as well as our state, so.
Thank you, Ms. Clemens. Good morning, everyone. So today, I'm going to bring before you a high-level overview of the revisions to our Consolidated State Plan, also known as Mississippi Succeeds. There are 4 key areas that were addressed through our amendment. There were the changes that were required through the COVID-19 addendum, which involved the extension of the long-term goals from 2025 to 2027. There were the waivers that we received for extending our requirement to implement more rigorous options for comprehensive support and improvement schools, and the extension to implement the requirement for Title I ATSI schools to escalate to CSI by 1 year. So those will go into place in the fall of '23 during that accountability cycle. We also had opportunity to modify the exit criteria for our comprehensive support and improvement schools, as well as our additional targeted support and improvement schools, right, ATSI, to modify a criteria to give a little flexibility due to the COVID waiver. And so those components were all approved in what we submitted to Ed, and we received that approval in August of '22. So those were the things that were a part of the COVID waiver. There were some other things that are being modified in this amendment that took place between the 2019 amendment and now that have happened in program offices. Several program offices may have gone through some APA processes that shifted things that will be reflected or that are reflected in this amendment. And then to align just language to what our work looks like today. So we gave program offices an opportunity to revisit their sections of the plan to ensure that the language does mirror what the work looks like today. So those are things also that are in the amendment. The final piece that's in the amendment that is new is the opportunity for us to revisit the exit criteria for our targeted support and improvement schools. The COVID addendum did not give us an opportunity to address that identification or designation. And so once we looked at data this year and we've met with schools and we talked through different things, and as Ms. Clemens said, we met with the Accountability Task Force, we saw an opportunity here to also address our exit criteria for targeted support and improvement. You'll see more information about that later in the presentation, which is not long, I promise you. So what you see on the slide now is basically our process that we follow. So the process includes, of course, the approval of our COVID-19 addendum by Ed in August of 2022. But you also see the things that took place between August and where we are today to get to where we want to be in by the end of the summer, which is an approved amendment. And so this slide just really kind of lays out the next steps. And so the one thing that you will see is that we did release this for public comment in January. Public comment closed on February the 6th. We did not have a lot of comments. We had about 9 comments, and those were a part of the board's packet or the board mail out, so you could see what those were. All but one of the comments were specific to what was in the proposed amendment. One of them was just a comment about general education as a whole. We will, once we present this item, Dr. Taylor will finalize his letter and sign, and then Ms. Spivey will work with the governor's office to engage the governor's office for final signatures. I've spoken to the public comment process. We received public comments from the district and from districts and community organizations. Comments were able to be submitted via mail or via email. All of the comments we received were received via email and responded to via email. That was also a part of your board packet. So now I want to talk just a little bit about where we are with the shifts that we are proposing for targeted support and improvement exit. So there were certain criteria that we really wanted to kind of consider as we were working toward those proposed changes. And so that's what I'll address first. One of the things that was really critical as a part of our Mississippi Succeeds plan, as a part of ESEA, was that anything that we did, those goals must be not only rigorous, but they must be attainable. So we had to set ambitious but attainable goals. And so you all know that our goal for all of our subgroups in our plan is by and large 70%. That's the goal, 70% proficiency by a certain timeline. So we wanted to make sure we kept that consideration in mind. But also, as we looked at the exit criteria, we wanted to ensure that we were not creating a situation where there was going to be this swinging door, schools in an identification one year and out the next. So those were pieces that were considered as well. We wanted to make sure that schools were able to demonstrate that they exited improvement and that they would be unlikely to be quickly reclassified. And then, of course, there's always this concern about disruption to the systems that we have in place as it relates to identifications or even potentially tied to accountability. So here's what we are proposing, and this is what was presented to the Accountability Task Force. We are proposing that we modify the second criterion in the process. And that second criteria is being proposed for modification because it focuses primarily on proficiency, and it doesn't take into consideration the growth that subgroups make. And so this criterion is we are proposing that if a school has its subgroup to meet at a minimum 50% of the growth measure in the model, that should be taken into consideration for exit. So if a school district can move 50%, or not 50%, but can get a growth score of 50 or higher in the model, then that shows that they are moving and growing those students, and that should be what we consider. So that is the piece that we're adding, and we're removing the piece that's tied to the proficiency requirement that's a part of the exit criteria. That is the second part of our criterion. The first part will remain in place, and it is basically you do what you do not to get identified, do not meet the identification criteria. So once schools meet that first criterion, if approved by ED, and everything is signed off on by Dr. Taylor and the governor's office, then we're wanting to say, hey, if you can move at least 50% of that subgroup, grow at least 50, get a growth score of 50 on that for that subgroup, then you get an opportunity to exit. But you, of course, had to meet that first criterion. So finally, our next steps, Dr. Taylor, of course, is to get your signature on that letter and, of course, on the plan, work with Ms. Spivey to engage the governor's office and get signature, and then submit to the Department of Education for approval, hopefully in time for the release of 2023 accountability or identifications. So that concludes the high-level overview of the modifications and the most substantial change that is being presented as it relates to our school improvement identifications. I'll entertain any questions or comments.
Anybody have a question or comment about this?
No.
Well, hearing none, we thank you for that, and we will hope it moves forward seamlessly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thank you.
Our action items, the first one is approval of some contracts that we have. We have 3 contracts that need to be approved today. Dr. Gavin?
Yes, good morning, Mrs. Altman and board members. We do have 3 contracts coming before the board for approval. The first item is item 2A, and it is our contract with Dr. Pulley, who serves as our interim superintendent in Tunica County. So this will go through the end of this calendar year.
Okay, any questions? I think everybody's familiar with Dr. Pulley and the work she's doing. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, second item is a contract with Broomstein, and that is to provide technical assistance to the agency as it relates to several of our programs.
Okay.
And then our final contract that we're seeking approval on is a contract with Cambridge University Press and Assessments. And of course, that deals with the assessment for the current school district.
Which is our only Cambridge school, district in the state. So,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Dr. Gavin, could you explain why this one's an emergency procurement versus the normal process, please?
Certainly. The normal process for this contract, it would have to go out for an RFP, and since the United States Department of Education authorized this, we will not have time to go out for the normal procurement based on the timelines to administer this test before the end of the school year.
Thank you.
Any other questions on any of these 3 items? Okay, do we have a motion to, we'll take them all in one action, item 2A, 2B, and 2C. Do we have a motion for those?
So moved.
Okay. Mr. Miller, is there a second? Mr. East, any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Then, item 3 is approval of MDE grants.
We have one grant to present to the board for approval, and it is for our MCOPS program. This is our second round for MCOPS, second and final round for MCOPS. We are pleased to announce that we will, this year, actually award all of the money that we were appropriated.
Okay. We have,
moved.
all right. Second, all right. Any questions on this? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Well, it's good, all that money was allocated this year. Yeah. All right, number 4 is the consent agenda. Anybody have, we have a number of items on the consent agenda. Do you have any questions on any of these?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I start saying, hearing none, we have a motion to approve them. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Well, we don't have an executive session today. We don't have any items in the executive session, so we may have set a record here today. I don't know. Have any of you, you've heard about some of the meetings we've attended. Anybody attended a meeting you'd like to give a report on?
Madam Chairman, I would like to compliment MASS. Their conference was based a lot on school safety and so on and so forth in that world and what we're doing, things we haven't thought about the further we get in. Outstanding conference for that group. And also I'll compliment Dr. Taylor and his words at the teacher retention and recruitment I call it the teacher shortage conference, second annual, and William Carey hosting that. So 2 great events that were very intentionally, I think, purposeful in what we're doing with in schools across the state.
Good. All right. We certainly want to thank the Madison County School District for allowing us to meet here today. And next month, I think, next month we're meeting here also. We have to check ourselves to find out where we're supposed to go. But next month, we will be back here on March the 9th at 10 o'clock to hold our board meeting. And then after that, we'll make a determination, I guess, as to whether or not the building will be ready. But anyway, we do thank them for their hospitality to us. So anyone else have any other? Okay, these short board meetings used to make me nervous because that's when a lot of stuff would come up, when they felt like they had to fill in the time. So we're glad that we were able to do the business in an efficient manner today. We appreciate you all being here with us, and so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second, all right. All in favor?
Great, thank you all.
Thank
That's
you.
great. I'll see you next month in
Okay,
person.
thanks.